Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome back to Homeschool Together. We hope you enjoyed your holiday, the initial holidays there, all you Americans eating a bunch of turkey and watching television and maybe spending a few bucks on Friday and had a good time. If you have a chance, you want to support the podcast, there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can go to our Gumroad page. You can also, if you're doing some holiday shopping, click through some of our Amazon links on our pages. Mm-hmm. We do affiliates through Amazon and some other affiliate things as well. It's a great way for you to pick up what you guys need for homeschool and maybe for the holidays if you need to buy that last minute Barbie kit, which I know we will be doing in the coming weeks. The best way that you can help the podcast is actually click through our links and we get a little kickback, and it helps keep the lights on here at homeschooltogether.com. So we know you may be thinking about traveling in this coming year, and you may have even picked up some tickets there on a Black Friday sale in the last few days or whatnot. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about traveling and trying to become a little bit more efficient and a little bit finding the right thing to do and helping to save costs, because we know traveling is one of those great things that you can do to, build those lifelong experiences, but we know it can be expensive. And so today we were going to be talking a little bit about ways to think about travel. If you want to begin to incorporate that, we have a number of families that we're good friends with, and we're all starting to, I think, kind of coming out of that pandemic egg, and we're finally out of it, and we're all starting to think about going places and seeing things and experiencing things as part of our homeschool and, seeing the world. Maybe not all of us can be fortunate enough to travel overseas, but maybe we can travel around, our state or our neighboring state and find a lot of cool things, or maybe even that next door country to the north, like Canada, or maybe if you live along the border and you want to head into Mexico and take a look at that, or if you're overseas and you want to cross into the neighboring country and see what's going on over there. I think travel can give us a great opportunity to kind of see the world, develop a lot of self-confidence with our children when we're in a kind of a foreign place doing unique things and seeing cool and interesting things. I think it can add a lot of layers to our experiences that they can then, push forward into their lives as they move through, whether it's socialization or just a greater understanding of the world.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the big thing for travel, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast about how much we love to travel, and as our kids are getting older here now at 5 and 9, we're getting greater opportunities to travel with them. But we realize that travel isn't as accessible to everyone as it is to us. And one of the things I think is that we have traveled a bit, not a ton, but we've traveled and done some significant trips, some month-long trips, which is just so amazing we've gotten that opportunity. Yeah. But we realize that travel is not as accessible to everyone. And we wanted to talk today about what are those roadblocks and things that get in our way as a family, as a homeschooling family, from being able to travel, and what are some ways that we've found that we can kind of move around those and try to break those apart, because I think, as you discussed, travel is so important, and it's one of the best ways that we can bring subjects to life. This trekking the world journey that we're doing right now, each country that we go to, and we're having these experiences where we're going to festivals and we're going to restaurants and doing all kinds of different things and having these really great learning opportunities that kind of bring it home for them. Travel is that, times 1,000, right? Mm-hmm. Of course, it's great to do things in our local area, but it's also great to get outside and see other things. So we wanted to talk about how we can, move beyond some of the problems and issues that get in our way and prevent us all from traveling as much as we would like to.
So the first thing would be a lot of cost restraints. And I think
Yeah.
when people think travel, the first thing they're probably thinking about is hopping on an airplane. Maybe we can talk about two ways of thinking: is traveling to things that are within maybe driving distance, and then maybe how do we reduce plane flight costs with respect to that.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the things that you can drive to, one of the things that I've seen done a lot, and there's lots of ways to do it, but one of the things I like to think about is making a custom Google map. And if you do that, you can then pinpoint things. And we do this every time we travel. Hey, when we went to Ireland, I did a whole Google map and I pinpointed all the different things so you could see when you're over there, hey, here's where I am and here's all the things. Well, you can do the same thing with a map, let's say, of your state. So whenever you hear about a new cool thing to do, you can pin it. And I've seen people do, you can take the little bubble flag things that they put on Google Maps, and you can do them in different colors. So I've seen people do things that are like, hey, everything in green is something that I can do in less than a day. Like it's not even a whole day trip. I could do it in an afternoon.
They could drive there,
right? Like
do the activity and come back.
Right. It's like maybe that's an hour or less, whatever it is in your area. Maybe it's mileage. In the Seattle area, it's definitely time because traffic is a consideration. But maybe if you live in a more rural area, it's distance. And maybe like everything in yellow represents a whole day trip, or everything in orange has to be a weekend or an overnight. You can kind of start going out in these rings. And every time that you hear about something from a fellow homeschool parent, or you see something on Facebook, or you hear about an event or whatever, you pin it. And so then when you're really itching to travel, but you don't have a lot of time or a lot of money, one of the great ways to use driving trips is to be able to see, oh my gosh, look at all these things that are in my local area. And you can just keep building this list, and then you can change the colors of them when you go to see those things. You can also do, of course, neighboring states. And so that can help you. Sometimes we feel like, oh, hey, we have a free weekend. We could actually go do some stuff. What should we do? And we have no idea. It's like, oh, this is a great time to pull up the list. Yeah. So I've tried this a couple of times, and I haven't made a comprehensive list of our area yet, but it's on my goals to do in 2025 is to make this list.
And going with that idea of the list, I think it's a great idea. It shouldn't just be destinations. For us, when we travel, it's seeing things, it's doing things, but it's also eating things, right?
Well, we're all about the food, and so we definitely do, pin things to eat.
But if you could think about it, if you're putting in those, the pins on your map, it's not just, oh, we're going to go to the ice caves, but also there's a really good burger joint there.
Right.
And, oh yeah, there's this, this other, cool, biggest thing of yarn in the world. Whatever. All those great little side
and you can,
attractions. Yeah.
And you can have different lists on Google Maps with filters. So you can also just like click and unclick. So you could say, hey, I don't want to see anything except the stuff that's an hour away. Yeah. And then once you have that clicked, you could say, oh, and I want to turn on the food,
turn on the
for
food,
example. Yeah. Or, there could be, you could also do it if you hear about, one of the things that always happens to me anyway, is I tend to hear about an event after it has happened. And then I'm like, oh man, we would have loved to go to that, light up display of blah, blah, blah. And now I have to wait a whole year for that to come back around.
That's a good point.
So one of the things that I have on my Google Calendar is I have a whole Google Calendar saved for future events. And this is where, hey, this event happened last year. So then on the calendar, I'm going to put the same dates roughly, or that same, this was the second weekend in December. I'm going to put the second weekend in December, and I'm going to put it on my calendar. And I'm just going to put a question mark behind it because I don't really know exactly that event's going to happen at the same time. But I can remember, later when I'm looking through the next couple of months ahead, I can flip on that. I don't have to see it all the time. Yeah. I do this with theater as well. When I know a show is going to run, like, oh, that show is going to be on in March next year, I'll just put it on the calendar on this events one.
Well, and like the high schools all tend to do their plays at the same time.
They do. And so this is a great way to say it's not cluttering my normal calendar, but I can toggle it. And then I can remember that, oh yeah, they had that cool light up thing that was going on, or oh, there was that festival that we missed last year. I'd really love to go to that this year. Remember to look it up in advance so that I don't miss it. So for the local driving type stuff, those I think are some good ways for you to, find some things you wouldn't otherwise find.
Well, and I love that idea that you're thinking ahead, right? Because a lot of times it's the opportunity meets the preparation, right? And,
Well, that's what somebody said the other day. Luck is
luck.
when opportunity meets preparation.
And you could almost think like travel is now preparation with opportunity, right?
Right.
And so you've done this prep work. You've thought about like, because a lot of times it's not just the big travel, right? We were talking about this earlier
Sure.
today. It's like, well, oh my gosh, we haven't, like you had done something, you had a miscalculation in your little spreadsheet on tracking your vacation hours. And
Yeah, my work
and
vacation.
we went into your system and you had an extra 8 hours just sitting there and you didn't know about it. You're like, wow, maybe we could go on a weekend trip or something like that.
Yeah, let's go to Canada.
Having those ideas. And what do we say? We said, well, I don't know where to go.
Right.
If you have done some prep work and said, okay, here's some ideas that I have for day trips or afternoon trips. Here are some weekend trips. Here are some camping locations that might be really fun and cool for the family or whatever. Like whatever that might be, you've done the prep work so that when that
Yeah.
opportunity comes up, or as you said, you're feeling that itch, like the kids are getting antsy.
Yeah.
We're burning the midnight oil on over here and we need to get away and go do something. Oh, here, I've got this trip potential right here. Let's go ahead and do it.
Right. And how often do you hear from friends that they went to a great campground
Oh, yeah.
or, they had a great experience somewhere? And like, I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Next summer when I'm planning camping, do I remember where they went? No.
It's one ear out the other.
Right. So this is why it's great to use like a saved Google map. I think, if you're not a Google map person, you could also do this in a spreadsheet. You could do a Google sheet or an Excel if that's what you want to do. And, do them in different categories and for distance away or for certain type of activities like hikes or camping.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Use whatever system you like, but having a bank of readily available things that you can drive to with a little bit of information about timing or whatever that is awesome because then you have just a bank available.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to flying is all about getting those tickets affordably, right?
It really is. Yeah.
Some people can be like, I really like to fly Delta or whatever it is. But honestly, we're trying to get the best price. I'm willing to fly, a lot of airlines. There's a few that we're not going to fly, but
and I know,
basically
yeah.
all the airlines to get a good price.
And we're all sitting here. We got 2 kids because it's not just the 2 of us.
Right.
It's also the kids, right?
Right. And some of you have larger families
Yeah, exactly.
and the travel just becomes more expensive. So we're all trying to get the cheapest airfare we can get. So there's a couple of things to do with that. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you can do is if you know exactly where you want to go and exactly when, awesome. Google flight alerts.
Yeah.
Anywhere you're looking for flights, going to Google Flights is the best way to go because it's going to show you all the different airlines and you could even toggle, let's say I'm not flying Spirit or whatever, or, wherever's going to be weird with baggage, okay, I'm not going to fly them or, whatever your preferences are. But you can also put in the date, you can track the price. Mm-hmm. We recently got tickets for our trip next year. We're going to Central Europe and I want to say the tickets were over $1,000 a piece. They were like $1,100 and I had a Google tracked flight. And at 8 p.m. one night, I got an email, your tickets are now $500. And we put those children to bed as quickly as humanly possible. And we went and figured out our dates exactly. And we booked that because it was a huge savings, right? So if you know exactly where you want to go and exactly when, I don't think you can do better than Google Flights. Mm-hmm. Now, if you are just kind of wanting to randomly browse and say, I wonder what the price is today, or what's a good deal today. Skyscanner is really good for that. So you can use that. So I think the best alert one is probably Google, but Skyscanner is really good too. There's some others that, will do alert deals and emails and stuff. And I think they all have varying successes. Try what works for you. But for me, that's kind of been the ones that have worked. But then the other one is if you're not exactly sure where you want to go, then if you do flights.google.com/explore, and we'll put the link in the show notes.
Yep.
If you put that in, and we were playing with this today, you can say, I want to go for a weekend, a week, or 2 weeks. Just select one of those within the next 6 months, or you can select a specific month, and it will show you everywhere you can go and how much it'll cost. And so you can do a few filters. You can say, for us, for example, we were thinking about, could we get like a weekend away sometime in the early spring? So we said, how about February? And we don't want to pay more than $200 a ticket. And we want nonstop because we're going for a short trip. We don't have time to change planes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So this is what we want to do. And then it shows it on a map. So we could even say, ooh, it's February.
It was actually really nice on the map because it showed we could put in our starting destination, which was Seattle.
Right.
And then it had all the connecting flights to all these different hubs and
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
And then you could just say, well, it's February, so we only want to go south.
We're not going north.
So we just went ahead and zoomed the map in on the south, and it only showed us those like 8 options, right? And it shows you the best airfare for those different destinations from wherever your home hub is, which ours, like you say, was Seattle. And it shows you like what weekend, for example. And maybe that's not the weekend you want to go, so that's fine. But it's giving you some choices if you're not sure exactly when you want to go or exactly where.
Yeah.
But you're like, man, it would be nice to get away. That is a great option. If you click on one of those, it'll tell you the flight prices for various airlines for that destination for that weekend. And it'll tell you some things to do in that area and some other things to explore. So you can see, oh, maybe it would be worth my time to go to that city or whatever. So that can be a terrific way to get super cheap airfare because you're getting in at the best time. You're basically saying what's the lowest cost to go to that city within the next 6 months, anytime.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Right. Now you may not find perfect travel times with that, right? So, you may find later night flights or early mornings. This is where we as homeschoolers can hopefully be a little bit more flexible because we don't have to travel at the exact perfect time.
Yeah.
So if you can afford the vacation time, if you've from, your work and if that all works out for you. And so what I usually find with those deals when it says, ooh, it's $97 each way or something, I typically find that that's going to be your non-refundable flight without being able to choose your seats and may not be at the best time. So usually I would say take that cost and, if it's under $500, add $50 to $100, maybe $50 to $75
to get the conditions you want.
To get the conditions that you actually want. It's never as cheap as that says, in my experience. Now, you can be you
never get the double coincidence of wants. Yeah.
Right. It's never like, ooh, that's always going to be, all the airlines now are breaking up their fees and their different flight tiers into refundables, non-refundables with seat selection and without, and with a carry-on bag and without. They're like slicing and dicing a million ways. So the absolute cheapest thing is going to be probably not exactly the time you want to travel. And it's going to be something that's non-refundable. So maybe that's fine, especially some airlines, their non-refundable tickets just mean you could get a voucher for another time. So, airlines may vary with that. Yeah. So just know it's maybe not quite that cheap, but still, that's, if you have a destination in mind, I really want to go to San Diego and I want to go sometime in the next 6 months. That's a great way to find out when the best time would be.
So talk a little bit about what we do we have Alaska Airlines here in Seattle and we are on their program and we get a free companion flight every year, right?
Yeah. And Alaska just merged with Hawaiian and we don't know what that partnership is going to look like next year, but we pay, I think,
Hopefully it means the boozers are going to Hawaii.
I don't know. Hawaii has gotten so expensive.
Hawaii friends, come on. Get in the comments below. Tell us why.
We've been to Hawaii a few times for weddings, and our honeymoon was in Hawaii, and we really wanted to take our kids back. But goodness. So yeah, we pay $100 a year for the Alaska Airlines Visa card, and then you get a companion fare every year that you pay. I want to say it's another $100 for. Mm-hmm. So it is not worth it to do if you're going to a cheap destination. Mm-hmm. It is great if you want to travel to Hawaii or somewhere else pretty expensive. So if you have a preferred airline, always look at the airline card because
especially if your city like Atlanta, I believe, is Delta.
Yeah,
if you have one of the major air carriers is in the hub of your town, there may be some advantages for you to use that.
Yeah, definitely.
And here in Seattle, Alaska is, I think, based here out of Seattle.
It is. Yeah. It is. Yeah. So if you've got an airline, like you say, that's a great way to go. And know that, we have, especially when the flights are short, we're not afraid to go ahead and book a flight where we can't choose our seats because we know we each get a kid. Mm-hmm. So when we book the kids, we'll book them under, like we'd book like 2 reservations. So one with you and one kid, me with one kid. So we know wherever we end up, we got a kid. So, they're not going to separate minors from us so that we're all together. So I do like to get seat assignments, but, if it's a short 2-hour flight or something, we usually go, we can figure it out.
So that's tackling the airline problem. And if you have a bigger family, maybe your net isn't as far. Maybe you can take one of the smaller regional airlines that can get you to some smaller destinations. Those flights tend to be a little bit smaller. So if you're thinking in terms of Ariel's analogy of the spheres, the growing spheres, if you're doing like a Google Maps thing, we have some friends who are bigger families and they like to fly out to like Idaho and whatnot, and they can get some pretty cheap flights on some of these smaller regional carriers. So think about that. If you have like a larger family, maybe you're thinking, it's going to be difficult for us to get to, Europe or to Hawaii. But maybe we could fly to, go skiing in, Salt Lake or something like that, or whatnot, and take one of these.
There's lots of great things to do.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things you do, and you can maybe get some cheap flights to do that.
The other thing I wanted to mention is, if you're really excited about seeing one particular thing, whatever it is you're studying. We were talking earlier about castles, right? It's like, we have to go to Germany because that's where the best castles are.
Got to go to Neuschwanstein and Hohenschwangau, right?
Right. Just really look. There may be lots of places known for that same thing, and some of those might be cheaper. We've talked to some families who've traveled to like Portugal instead of Spain, for example, and they've been able to see some of the same things. So every culture is different. I'm not saying that they're the same countries, but there are some notably very expensive places to travel. And there are other places that are much more affordable. So let's say that you really want to go to the Alps in Switzerland. Switzerland's one of the most expensive places to travel. So, but there are lots of mountains in different parts of Europe. You could go to, we've heard amazing things about going to Slovenia, for example. People love it and the cost is much lower. And so I'm not saying it's the Alps, but you can
try other mountains.
There could be other mountains, depending on what it is that you're looking for, right? So just having your heart set on, I can only go to this one place because that's the thing we're studying. It has to be there. Maybe there are other places that are more affordable that could still get you there, or maybe you could even travel to like a neighboring country. Like let's say you go to northern Italy, so you can do the Alps on the other side, on the sides of the Dolomites. You could always you could take a train into Switzerland and stay for a few days and enjoy that, and then go back to wherever it was that was more affordable. So there's different options, but just be aware that there might be multiple ways to get to the area that you want to be in, or the area that you're studying,
or get the experiences that you're looking for, especially if it's a destination like going to Paris might be obviously that's a once in a lifetime experience, for a lot of people, and seeing those great places. But if you're going for the culture, maybe you go to somewhere like, I don't know, like Prague, or maybe in one of the northern, maybe the Baltic states or something of that nature, and trying some, off the beaten path, because they're not going to be as busy and as expensive and all those type of things. So thinking strategy wise, I like how you're thinking in the sense that having a strategy of what you're trying to achieve and experience is kind of a different thing. We've known a lot of people who gone to like Croatia.
They've loved Croatia.
They've loved it, and it's a lot more affordable places to go as a comparison to some other places in Europe. It's a lot cheaper, and you get the really fun, great experiences, great food, and all those things, and you get kind of a different story to tell to people. A lot of people traveling like to Costa Rica or something like that.
Yeah, we've heard good things there too.
Good things there as well. And so you just get these like different experiences. So maybe not try to narrow down on the one famous city, maybe broaden out the horizon, and you might be able to find different places to help save a few bucks. Now that's like kind of like strategy, thinking about things, getting the plane flights, where we should go. Once you get there, you can't stay in a tent, unless you're doing some backpacking and staying together.
Maybe that's your jam.
That might be your thing.
That sounds cool.
But if you are going to travel somewhere and get on an airplane and land, you're going to need some accommodations. So we have done a number of things in the past. Most of them are not hotels.
No.
But you may find that hotels, there may be some like bed and breakfast places or smaller hotels or whatnot might be there, but we've been mainly Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway has been our big picks. And that's because we tend to stay a lot longer. there are added advantages for staying longer. That I think, what is it? The cutoff is like 28 days.
It's 28 days. So
Yeah.
once you stay 28 days with Airbnb or VRBO, and there's a couple of different sites, but Airbnb is the one we've primarily used. Hosts do have an option to give a long stay discount. Not all of them do. Some of them do, and that can be significant. When we went to both Ireland and Florida, to Orlando, we got big chunks taken off. I think it was like $1,000 less in Ireland and maybe like $500 or $600 less in Orlando.
It was pretty significant
For staying that 28 days. And it's funny because in both situations, actually, maybe we did it in Florida, but I know in Ireland, we only actually stayed like 25 days there.
We actually paid for the extra 2 days.
It was actually cheaper because it was so much cheaper to say we were staying for 28 days and stay just a little, say we were staying a little longer. And that worked out really great. So that's one option. The other thing to remember is that when you stay in a hotel, you're basically paying for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner at some sort of a restaurant. I mean, maybe you can heat up some things in the hotel depending if they have like a little kitchenette. But the thing for us about Airbnb is it takes down the cost of food, which is such a significant part of travel costs, especially when you have a family. And if we went out to every meal, there's no way we could afford to travel this way. So the first stop we always make when we get to someplace new is we go to the grocery store and we stock up on all of our breakfast and lunch foods. And then dinners, we kind of 50-50. Sometimes we eat out and sometimes we eat in, but we try not to eat out for every meal. We may like snack occasionally out, but the food is pretty significant. So even if you paid a little bit more for an Airbnb than you would for a hotel, you get the benefit of paying a lot less for food, and you can have multiple bedrooms because staying with your kids all in one room gets on everybody's nerves really quickly.
Yep.
Each time we've stayed, we've had multiple bedrooms. Like in Ireland, our kids shared a room, but like in Orlando, our kids had separate rooms. On our next trip, they will have separate beds. So and that just means she's kicking me. I can't go to sleep because she's keeping me awake. All the things.
I don't think you run into that when you're on a shorter vacation. Like, so if you're thinking about like 4 to 7, 8, 9, 10 days type of thing.
But it still could be nice.
It would be nice. But like we have found when we go as long as we go, they sometimes just after a while just need to separate and be on their own, get their own quiet time, do their own activities, whatever that might be. Yeah. Just having that space and that time away, I think really helps them, keep it civil.
It's hard even when we've gone a few times to stay in hotels and done some small short weekend things all together in a hotel room. It can be a challenge.
It's chippy after a few days.
Well, yeah, somebody wants to go to sleep, somebody else is awake, somebody's coughing. I mean, whatever. It's a lot of people all in one room.
She's touching me.
yeah. It's a lot of people in one room. So when we can do something like that, we like to. And we really try to look at where are we going to stay and what does our radius look like in terms of walking and public transportation or driving, depending on where we were. Like when we were in Orlando, I mean, we were like, I'll be 5 minutes further away from Disney. That's cool. I'll save $300 for the month or whatever. Like you can make some strategic decisions. When, if we're going to stay in like a major city, we might be looking at where is
parks, where's
the
shopping?
Transit and where's the transit stop?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a transit stop here. Or, oh, that's a 15-minute walk to take. But we don't mind a 15-minute walk. Your mileage may vary with that, but we don't mind a bit of a walk, and so that's great with us. You can really save, but if you try to be like right in the touristy area, that can be a real challenge. And the other thing that can be a challenge with touristy stuff is if you're looking to only go and do the touristy things, that can start to rack up in terms of ticket costs and things, especially if it's like, museums and sightseeing and all that stuff. So some countries will have really great museum passes and things that you can get. Some of them usually will have like a 3-day pass or 4-day pass. Doesn't help you if you're staying for long travel. But if you're only there for a couple of days or in the middle of your long travel, you're willing to do a couple of intensive days where you do a lot of museums, that might work for you. Some countries have like Ireland had this heritage card and we could pay for it. It was like a yearly membership. We got in everywhere for, with that card, and the kids were free. And in a lot of countries, the kids are free to up to a certain age on public transit and to museums and things. So definitely check that out because some countries it can absolutely cut down the cost of your trip if you're only paying for the adults in your family to go to all of these museums, and the kids are free. So
Well, and kind of keying on that same idea, your accommodations may determine if you need to have a car or not. And
Absolutely.
And as you said, having public transportation, if you stay in a city, having that available to get a metro pass on this city might only be $30, and there may be enough stuff in that city to accommodate you for the 12, 13, 14 days. And on those off chances you need to get somewhere further, there are sometimes charter buses in those towns that will take you out to those towns. There's almost in all major cities, either some type of taxi service or Uber and Lyft as an option to get you from A to B. And really, we started using Uber and Lyft like to get to airports, to get back from airports.
Yeah.
And once you start to knock out those big activities and you start to think about, wow, I can walk to this area, or I can, that's 30 minutes from here. That's not a big deal. Or I can hop on a bus and go 20, a couple miles and be there. Man, saving that cost on the car, not having to pay for the gas, not having to pay for the car.
And really the stress of driving a car.
And then
overseas,
obviously
specifically.
Not necessarily in the U.S. U.S. is very car centric, unless you're in some of the big cities, which is just such a big country, right? So like a lot of times to go from A to B, you got to drive such a long distance. It was kind of funny. We were looking at, we could go see Redwoods. We'll fly into Reading. How far is it from Reading to the Redwoods? It's like 3 hours. It's like, wow. It's like, you just don't even think about how far that is, right?
Yeah.
Some of these places in Europe, obviously they have the rail passes, in Asia as well, a lot of rail passes. So thinking about your transportation and then how you want to do that, especially if you're going to stay there for a month, or if you're going to stay there for like 12 days, but the month-long pass is available.
Yeah.
And you then start to think about, okay, what can I do with that? Oh, I can hop between this city and this city. That now just opens up my availability. It's just a get on and go type of thing. I don't have to pay per ticket. All of a sudden I have all this freedom. The trip to this town isn't a whole day or an overnight activity. I can just go there in the morning, hop on, go see a bunch of things, hop back on the train, come home because I bought the month pass, as opposed to like the a la carte trips type of thing. And because I can do that, I can have a lot more experiences. It's a lot less stress. I can just, go whenever I want. Starting to think about your accommodations with respect to your how to get to places, I think helps you make better decisions and what you want to do. And I think we're starting to kind of start thinking in those terms of, well, do we really need a car? Like in Ireland, we kind of needed it.
Yeah, you did.
But in Orlando, we definitely needed a car because we couldn't get around without it.
I mean, you could Uber places, but it would have been too hard to do. But if you're staying in a city, you definitely can. If you do have to get a car, or you're going to occasionally Uber, one thought is to get an inflatable booster seat for your kids if they're old enough for that, just so you're not lugging around this giant car seat. I mean, for us, this next year will be the first year we could go somewhere with just a booster without having to lug around a younger car, big car seat, because that can be a real challenge too.
Oh, and I'll put it in the show notes, a link to if you do have to bring a car seat, I have a car seat bag.
Oh man, it's the best.
That has straps, so you just strap it onto your backpack, like a backpack, and you just carry it around. It was a lifesaver. A number of our families who have done traveling have borrowed this bag in order to easily carry the car seat.
Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about it being damaged. With the airport, we've also put multiple car seats in it, and we usually stuff a couple baby blankets in there and a few extra things. And so we do a little bit of that. We've also seen there's a really cool luggage dollies for the airport, where your car seat can actually get in there and you can put the kid in there and drag them backwards.
Almost like a stroller, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put a luggage trolley almost. We'll put a link to that in the show notes too. So one of the other things to think about that I think does hinder people, I mean, every time we go out of the house, I feel like we've brought half the house with us. We drive a minivan. We're minivan people, yes. And I feel like there's so much stuff. And so when you think about traveling, think about, oh my gosh, how in the world am I going to pack all this stuff? And how am I going to get, 3 or 4 kids and everything that we need? And how would I even tackle trying to go to a foreign country or even across the US or whatever? There's just so much stuff. So one of the things that I think is really fun to challenge yourself with is, could you travel carry-on only?
Mm-hmm.
So for next year, for our trip to Europe, our airline tickets were going to be an extra $800 for us to get
One checked bag per person.
one checked bag per person, which was weird because like on Aer Lingus, when we flew to Ireland, it was free. It was free when we went on Lufthansa X amount of years ago.
Iceland Air as well,
It was free when we went, I don't know,
Times are
12 years ago.
Ariel, times are changing.
Times are changing. British Airways was like $800 more, and we were like, no. So now it's like, okay, we're going for a month to Europe.
And we're going to do it. We're going to do this, Ariel.
We're going to do it with carry-on only. So there's lots of different ways to do that. A lot of times we've always done like roller bags, and then, you got your little personal item backpack that can fit under the seat in front of you. But recently there are a lot of people doing carry-on size backpacks.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we are going to do. There are a whole host of them.
Wide range of prices and
and
features.
I'll put some links on the show notes. You can go from, there is like a $50 Amazon Essentials version of this, all the way to like $390. I mean, you can go like anywhere in between. The ones that are a couple $100 are really amazing, and we did end up buying one of those because it has like a lifetime warranty, and we're going to use the heck out of it. But you can get away with as cheap as like $50 from Amazon. It may not last you more than a few trips, but heck, it's not very expensive. And basically, it is a carry-on size that goes on your back. So you don't have to worry about rolling it on cobblestone streets. And how are you going to get it on that packed train from Rome to Venice or whatever? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, all your things are with you at all times. And really, it forces you to try to figure out, how can I pack lighter? One thing for us ladies is to think about a capsule wardrobe, which is, you can do it with look it up on, it's a YouTube death spiral, and I'm sorry, ladies, but if you look at like 9 pieces of clothing, how they could all go, any one shirt could go with any one pants, and vice versa, and you have layering options, and you have lots of ways to mix and match and make different outfits, and then you can layer for different types of weather. And where we're going that month, it could be anything from snow to shorts. So we have to be really careful. Obviously, look up the weather before you go and see what you could expect and what you need to.
But you're making decisions based on like clothing. Like you're making a light and tight and rollable and very thin material.
Like I'm going to wear one pair of jeans, but I ended up getting these amazing travel pants from Costco.
Oh, that's another podcast, Ariel. Okay. Say the ladies on your travel clothes. Maybe we'll put that as part 3 of this.
Oh my gosh. So there's been some great stuff. Point being, challenge yourself and your kids to, how could we get this down into carry-on only? Mm-hmm. And what we're actually going a little slimmer than that, because we're going to go carry-on only without personal item bags. Mm-hmm. We're going to do the packable day packs that we talked about on our gift guide. We're going to put those inside our carry-on so that we have expansion room for souvenirs.
And you're working from there, so you're bringing all your equipment.
Yeah, I have to bring my work stuff too.
Your monitor, your computer, your backup monitor, your stand, all the things that you use when you set up. When we get to this location, you create essentially an office space for yourself to work for the limited time that you're working from a distance. We're bringing that as well, and that's included in this pack list, which is, I think, very impressive. I think we'll do a video maybe.
I think we'll have to, but I think it's totally doable, especially if you pay attention to the type of clothing you pack, as we talked about, and really challenge yourself to do it. It's very freeing. We were only gone for like 5 days, but we went to Albuquerque for the balloon fiesta, and we packed carry-on only, just backpacks. Both of us just had a backpack. Yep. And I can't tell you how we felt like travel was so much more accessible. We felt like we were juggling less. The other thing is trying to keep a hold of rolling suitcases and stuff when we have kids. With kids, and you got little hands to hold on to. When we went to Ireland and even Orlando, we took big checked baggage, and it was a very stressful experience. So if traveling stresses you out, especially traveling with kids stresses you, try to think about this and think about if you could do carry-on only and what that might free you up in terms of we felt like we could go anywhere and do anything when we were in Albuquerque. And while everyone was struggling with their luggage and waiting for it to come off the carousel, and we were like
we were
right onto the rental car shuttle.
On and off, yeah.
It was so easy, and we had the confidence of knowing when they were telling everybody, oh, we're going to have to check bags. It was like, well, not ours, because this is all we got.
Yeah.
And that felt really great. So definitely, I think those are the big things. You've got the cost hindrance stuff, and you have some of the stress and logistical challenges that I think the last thing to say, if you're a stressor, if you travel stresses you, is just being very flexible with and kind with yourself. And when you tell your family about what you're planning to do, we always coach it in, well, we're going to try to do X, because we don't want everybody to get like locked into that thing. And then
getting locked in, I think, is the big thing. It's like,
it
we
was
have
closed,
to do this, or
train was late, or
I was like, I think we've done this a few times where we have asked everyone, what is your favorite thing that you want to do? And we'll make the priority of doing that thing. And then there's like a second tier of things that we could do, right? Like our daughter wanted to go and see this thing. Okay, fine. We're going to make a point of going to do that because that's the thing you've said you wanted to do. And then we'll try to have other experiences. And if some of them fall through, they fall through. No big deal. Everybody got the thing they want. And I really like that idea.
Yeah, they got the thing they wanted the most.
Yeah.
When we traveled before we had kids, we did a big trip, and we had a policy. It was like, like you're in Venice for the day, for example, or for a couple of days. Each day we only had one goal. Yep. And if we did that one goal, everything else was gravy. So that way it just really freed us up. It'd be the first thing we would go to do. And then after that, we felt like, hey, the day was already a success. So I know that the idea of traveling can be stressful, but hopefully these tips will help you to maybe think about it in a new way and, maybe remove some of those roadblocks that have been keeping you and your homeschool grounded. So next week, we're going to talk about how to pack up your homeschool and take it with you, and some ideas for making it portable while still having lots of learning. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
Happy homeschooling!